Welcome back to Scinary Information Nexus, your podcast of sin.
A little lighter today.
You got me on that one.
Yeah, that was a little unexpected, I will say.
I got to keep you guys on your toes.
Well, for all the as Richard would say, 12 listeners, this is probably a little bit different. Richard's not here.
The inmates have taken over.
Yeah.
The asylum is open.
Under new management.
Okay, so the thing about the asylum and the inmates is, is it the whole, like, we were trapped in there with him, or we're,
Yeah, I think the inmates have been running the asylum for quite a while at this point.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
But yeah, Richard, unfortunately, was not available today, so I am acting in the capacity of our wonderful director, at least when it comes to all this fancy technology that, like we said, audiovisual is not technology.
Strategic initiatives and podcasts.
Yeah, but I am joined today with Joseph Hamilton,
Hey,
Hunter Isham,
Howdy.
and Mario Ortiz.
Hello.
And myself, Brazos Wortham. Howdy, folks. And today is March 6th, another wonderful week in cybersecurity. And I do think that we have kind of a fun episode today. We have talked about some of the topics that we were going to go over, but mostly in like minor segments. This hasn't been like an overall topic for the podcast. But one of the things that I will tell you about all of the people in this room is that we have all acted in the capacity of the Security Operations Center manager at some point in time. In fact, I am probably the most far removed from the role.
It's been a bit.
Yeah, it's been a while. But I have acted in that capacity at one point in time. I think that was probably 4?
Yeah, I was going to say about 4.5, 5 years ago.
Yeah, because
now.
it was like right as I came on, I think.
Yeah,
you were in that position.
I got moved out, kicked out, which is crazy to think about. But
I was there when he was Bravo lead.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. That's why I still say Alpha sometimes acts funny, is because that was Richard's original team.
Yep.
And
It kind of just persisted.
the DNA is still there. But with the idea that everybody here has been acted in that capacity at some point in time, we thought it would be an interesting episode to go over SOC operations, SOC management. Again, this has been something that we kind of have covered in the past in minor segments. I think that was like 2 or 3 episodes ago. We kind of tried to get into it, but it really wasn't a deep dive. So instead, today we are going to deep dive this topic, at least as much as our rambling tends to allow. So with that, I figured I can kick it off kind of with the first question. And as the current SOC manager, I guess I'll kind of pose this to you. So there's a lot of operations out there. So things like MSPs, for example, or even what people will call MSSPs, or just technology companies that claim to offer like managed security services. But often those companies lack some of the components that would make up a true security operations center.
Right.
I mean, we've seen this from time to time. And so what I wanted to ask is, and Richard has talked about this before, that there's really not a standard out there for what is a security operations center. There's no like CMMC standard, NIST 800-53, or some sort of industry certification. It's kind of the wild, wild west. Anybody can start one up and say that they have a SOC. Mind you, there's things like SOC 2 compliance. You can get CMC compliant, but even then,
that's more about your level of security than it is about how much security you can provide to others. And that, I think the SOC 2 verification is actually a prime example of how those kinds of things can get conflated. And a lot of clients here, they're SOC 2 certified, they have a good SOC.
Yep.
Those are not the same thing. And one does not mean the other in any capacity. I mean, you can have SOC 2 certification and not have anything to do with security operations. And so, at the end of the day, I think let's talk about what I would call the most egregious version of purporting to be a SOC, but not actually having anything SOC related. And that is, there are many companies out there, especially like mid-level or small companies, that go out and find services of other providers, and they bundle those into like a package. And the managed version of that is a ticket system that you can say, hey, something got flagged on this thing. It's okay or whatever have you. And the managed thing is that they'll go in and make it an exclusion. Basically, they'll help with the configuration of whatever it is over time, but there's not really any real monitoring to that solution, and there's not really any real alerting to that solution other than what the solutions they are like vending provide. And oftentimes that becomes automated more than anything else. And that would, like I said, I feel like that's the most egregious version of it, because at that point in time, the client might as well just buy those security solutions from the actual original company, put together their own package, and they would have the administration of it, but it would probably benefit them more because at least they would understand those individual products instead of just being completely out of the loop of how those products were even set up to begin with. And then not only that, but believing that someone is viewing it or interacting with it in a significant way to protect them whenever that's not technically what's happening in that scenario.
Yeah. And one thing that I've noticed that, in fact, there's a lot of kind of companies out there that's their entire business model is the idea that they're just honestly a reseller.
Rebundling and upselling.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
A little bit off the top.
And the thing that I always thought about that is it doesn't really make sense from a value perspective, like if you're the end customer, because there's just like, again, if that particular company is actually doing additional services, they just don't have the capacity of a SOC.
Or if they get someone who is a true SOC and they're vending that service, like we have vendors that vend us, right? But it's still, there's someone looking at the logs. It's not just I'm going to manage an automated solution by configuring it occasionally, which is really what those come down to.
So what would we say is like what would wake up that true SOC? Like what are some of the requirements? Again, I know that there isn't that gold standard, but if we could make that gold standard, what would we call it? Or what would it consist of?
Well, I guess at least from my perspective, so I am the assistant SOC manager, as hopefully some of the 12 viewers at least recognize the name. We do have two Marios here, though, so it's double the chances. But
no, it's Luigi.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
the other one's Luigi.
He is taller than me.
You are player one.
We can change that.
I don't.
The height, not the player one. I don't want to be player one.
It's like Mario.
But I think it's definitely based on expectation. A little bit further on what you were kind of talking about. Expectation is king. If all you care about is automated reporting, that satisfies what you want, anyone can be a SOC, right? Like you mentioned, even if we had a Python script that just did an Nmap scan and made it look pretty, we could call ourselves a SOC. So expectation is everything. But for me, I would love always a human available for response. One of the things that I think we excel at, and we're, of course, every now and then, we have a couple slip ups, but the norm here is you will have a human always around the clock available. And I think that should be a standard, because anything that's automated, and I know we're kind of moving towards AI type deals. If you can't get what you want, you're not getting anywhere, right? Like what if the bot is broken and there's a ransomware event? You're done. Or as the kids say, you're cooked.
Well, and that's probably the biggest thing that I would say would maybe be the mid-level of it is a SOC that is reliant on either one singular product or a set of tools that are very narrow in how like the analysts are trained on it. So I talk about this with our analysts here about the fact that a tier 1 analyst here does a lot more than a tier 1 analyst in most real SOCs, right? And that's because at the end of the day, they actually do some real investigation, reading between the lines and understanding deeper what the traffic means and where it goes. Not saying that you don't need some of that to do what the other tier 1s do in other companies, but a lot of times it's an automated alert has come to me and I'm just double checking that it wasn't a false positive. It's all I'm doing. So I'm merely checking the tool,
escalating it to a tier 2.
Yep, I'm merely checking the tool against itself and seeing if it should have popped that out, and then if it did, I send it up to tier 2 to truly do further investigation. And at the end of the day, I think that within those kinds of paradigms, I think you had something later about specialization. So
I did.
I'll hold off on that for a little bit. But I think in those kinds of paradigms, you end up with very few people that actually understand fully what is being looked at, and I think it hurts a little bit of that response element of things. So my tier 1s that are in there, whenever they put out a response to the client, it includes remediations. My tier 1s understand what remediations need to be done for certain events, right? If it's beyond their capacity or beyond their knowledge set, they come and get either their tier 2 or the team lead or all the way up into management. I mean, they can walk into our office anytime, pull us out there, we're going to help them out with something, right? So, but at the end of the day, my tier 1s are looking at things from a broader perspective of risk and then remediation. And so the response aspect of it and actually working with the client in order to get it remediated, not just, hey, here's what's wrong, have fun.
Yeah.
I think is a huge part of it.
And just to slip this in there, another huge, and I really, really think it's a key component to a SOC. And I know, some people sell it separately, but if we have the ability to directly affect a situation, I think we should. We do that excellently with threat down as an example. If we see something, we take action. We don't just send an email and say, hey, this looks really bad. We actually isolate that machine. We remove as much risk as possible before, anyone gets on the phone. I think that is such a key component. And I know some people sell it as a separate package. I've seen it before where they just, here's your email, but if you want us to do something, you got to pay us a little bit more. I do think that component needs to be there.
Well, and one of the ways that I like to think about what a true SOC should be, right, is if you think about it as somebody that's doing a managed service, either, managed service or managed security service, whatever that may be, you are acting in the capacity of an on-site team, right? Mm-hmm. So if taking what your example right there is, would an on-site SOC not take action on something that they're seeing? Hell no. They would take action on it because that's a part of their organization. So to me, that is a very core component to that. And we have seen that where you're a tech director at a school district and you get an email from a SOC team that says, hey, I saw X, Y, and Z. You should do, A, B, and C, but it's 2 a.m. on a Saturday. What the hell are you going to do?
Right.
So the other core component to me that I think is really important, and it, again, kind of revolving around the SLA, is response time. Mm-hmm. If you have a response time that is like in the over 60 minutes, like by default, that's a problem. Like,
I absolutely agree.
When you're talking about cybersecurity incidents where seconds matter and your response time is, we may get to it within an hour. It's like, sometimes at that point they're already they're already ransomwared.
Well, it's kind of like I've seen incident response, which incident response is a little more than what a normal SOC would. I think even you can be a real SOC and not necessarily have full on incident response as part of things. Maybe you outsource that. Maybe you give them good pathways for being able to get that set in stone or like initiated. But I have seen a number of companies now that they offer incident response, but first of all, the incident response is always paid hourly, which that's a huge amount that ends up being. And sometimes you don't get a choice whenever incident response happens in those kinds of packages. It's because at that point it's ransomware. So it is incident response. And so now they're calling in incident response, but they can take up to 48 hours to get on site. And at 48 hours past the initial incident that caused incident response, I mean, you have potential cleanup that's already happened on site by the attacker that may have wiped logs that would be crucial.
Lost business. But you also have people panicking because, I mean, it's hard not to. It's their careers that are on the line. Invariably, someone says, well, maybe I just turn it off for now, right? Even with explicit instructions, sometimes someone just comes in the room and goes, man, it scares me. I'm going to turn it off, right? And all it takes is one thing. Getting boots on the ground as quickly as possible is huge. And now, I mean, some of it can't be helped. I mean, if they have to book flights and stuff like that, I understand that kind of thing. But for the most part, even if you can just engage remotely effectively and get there within an hour of getting engaged with them within an hour of it happening underneath that 60-minute timeline, is imperative. I think most of the time we're on a call with them within like 15, 20 minutes. Yeah. Is like where we try to live. I mean, so one thing I feel like we keep coming back to, and it's kind of where I thought this question was going at first, but we started talking about packaging, offerings, that kind of stuff. But whenever I heard the question, the first thing that came to my mind was like the people. Like you have to have people who are willing to go above and beyond. Doing the bare minimum whenever it comes to detecting things, looking for things, that just doesn't cut it. I mean, when police are investigating a crime, we don't want them to do the bare minimum, do we? No, we want them to be able to, actively respond and work on things, just like how you brought up earlier, 2 days, an hour later, I mean, oscillations or defecations at the fan. Like I got it backwards there.
It's oscillation, right?
The Richard quote.
Oscillation meets defecation or something like that. Yeah.
When the defecation hits the oscillation.
Yeah, there we go. When the defecation meets the oscillation. But, I really feel like a lot of the time it's about the people and them wanting to help others and do above the bare minimum. I mean, when somebody is having a problem, it's like you said, we put in those remediations. It's not just, hey, this looks kind of broke. Go figure it out. It's, hey, this looks broke. And based on these other logs, let's do X, Y, and Z. Let's try to figure out how to mitigate this. Do we need to send this over to our tech services branch for further investigation? It's about going above and beyond to me.
And I think that's like when we were talking about the idea of like the tier 1 to tier 2 transition for a lot of these companies, where really and truly that tier 1 in most SOCs is purely just to do the bare minimum. And I mean, that's what their job is. I don't really blame them, but it's like, hey, follow this checklist. If it, falls out of this checklist, either escalate it or kill it.
Right.
And that's where it falls out of that paradigm of like, that's all they're doing is bare minimum.
And you can kind of tell that that's a very consistent key aspect in Scinary specifically, because we have the different generations of SOC manager, and we've grown like an insane amount between like when I was an intern here to now, but the consistency stay true, right? We want to do the best. We want to be the best. We are the best, and we're going to help you.
Yeah. No, and that is one thing that I have never seen kind of go away despite our, growing up, if you will, and is that idea of just trying to maintain that level of service and understanding that is a core necessity to what a SOC could do. But you had mentioned something earlier where you started talking about kind of the automated stuff, and I was going to be like, this is actually a really good segue, and the few times that term gets used and it's legitimate. But the next question that I kind of had, and I guess we'll start with you, Hunter, seeing as I posed this one or the first one to Joe.
Got to reverse the circle.
Yeah, I got to reverse the circle, and then we can go around. But on the automation, and I've seen this more and more where some companies have started up where their whole purpose is to build AI SOCs. Like every tool is just completely automated, and I think that there is no SOC team there, or B, there is as few actual analysts as possible inside the actual company, and they're mainly relying on AI automated systems to take action. I have a feeling I know what everybody's thoughts here on that is, but I do kind of want to talk about like what the benefits of like AI.
We
type
never
systems.
ever rant about AI. I don't know what you're talking about.
You know,
And in fact, I think that we should just move to AI. It's as simple as that.
I think it'd be really cool if our editor could put all the times like all the videos related to like.
yeah.
No, but overall, whenever I kind of think about AI and people using it in the workforce, I view AI as the employee you would pay, bare minimum wage to. Lowest, I don't know what it is right now, 725, 750.
750, I think.
But, paying 750 an
Back in
hour
my
to.
day.
That employee does exactly what you tell them, nothing more. All right. And a lot of times with AI, people aren't using it to its fullest, or they're just hoping that fixes everything. And it's not an end all be all. I mean, one thing at Scinary that we've really prided ourselves on is the fact that, no matter what, at the end of the day, we're going to get human eyes on the alert. I think that there is a place for AI in cybersecurity. We pick up millions, if not into the billions of logs a day at this point. A human cannot go through billions of logs. All right. We can go through those escalated and elevated alerts a lot easier with, the number of people we have, but even still that becomes thousands, we're just slowly moving down, this granularized cone of data. And so with that, I really think that AI can be used for, processing lots of logs and doing low level tasks. But at the end of the day, we need human eyes on these elevated alerts. At the end of the day, we're able to take in more context. I know that, they get trained on every context around the sun, but I mean, for example, we're working with these small school districts and sometimes we build relationships with them and we know what's going on. AI, you can't replicate that kind of stuff.
You are famous. You're small town famous, Hunter.
I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. The person that calls you about the Proxmox helped probably every couple weeks.
Yeah.
I hope they're watching.
I doubt they are.
But I think that's also a good thing to denote, or I guess hit on with AI. AI does not do very well with human imperfection.
Exactly.
You
it does what you tell it, and that's it.
Well, but even beyond that, how many weird networks have we seen over time? How many things that are outside the norm or outside of what we would call security best practices that at the end of the day, you have to get to know the client and you have to understand what their network is and how it's been built up over time and go, you're probably not going to fix that right now. Yeah. Let's get you as close as we can to being as secure as we can with what you got. And I think AI, if it's trained off of every kind of context and the latest information and the latest attack chains and everything else, it'll look at it and go, rah! It's just going to throw off alert. And then what do? You silence it completely? Okay, well, now it's not looking for the stuff anymore. So it's very hard for AI to judge human imperfection. It only can know based off of the scale of security where you are on the security matrix and then try to make that better. That's what it's good for doing. And that's great, but it doesn't fit everything,
And I think that's kind of, we have similar outlooks, but slightly different examples. I've always thought about AI, not so much, and I know they're kind of making it like a person, like you said, and at this point it's possible, right? I mean, we see it all the time with certain emails that get shared to us by clients. They're like, hey, we got this from XY, company. We're like, yeah, that's an Nmap script with a, pretty face on it. Yeah. But no shots fired. But the way I've always looked at AI, especially now in kind of our workforce, is it's a tool. It is nothing more than a tool, right? I can't, and I think about like ECMO machines because, well, my wife's a nurse. We were talking about that recently, right? Like the big spinny thing.
I don't know what that is.
I think it's just like a big thing that spins stuff.
Usually it's for getting different
blood, right?
thicknesses of fluid
I thought
separated.
that was a centrifuge.
Well,
we get the idea, right? We get the idea.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, Brazos, but I guess we get the idea, right? Right, folks?
yeah. I think that may be a brand. I think it may be called a centrifuge.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You maybe.
All right.
It's
Look
like
at Joe, the big brain.
Hot tub and jacuzzi thing.
All together, we can form one thought.
Yeah.
But
Here at Scinary with our one brain cell.
you have it today.
Yay.
But taking that idea, it can do fantastic things, but you have to know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have to rely on the person using it. You can't just look at it and say, do the thing.
Yeah.
Because it can't do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know how to do the thing. And I think it's such an excellent tool. But to go as far as to say it'll replace a human, and I know that's what a lot of people want to do, right? Especially people who aren't in our industry, right? I think about the businessmen. They're like, oh, I don't need that overhead anymore. I can pay like 20 grand once and then be done. Let's do that. Not actually understanding the repercussions. I think that is the biggest pitfall. It's an excellent tool. It really is. Like with all the latest and greatest information.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do some pretty cool stuff. Even just with like having a base coding template. That's pretty cool. I suck at coding.
I mean,
but
we've definitely used AI in a few different processes, back of house kind of stuff where we're building some things and testing some things. And AI has been exceedingly helpful in that. I think that's maybe the other thing about it for me is that it is a tool. But I can't count how many times we've harped on the analysts, but also like amongst ourselves of the importance whenever you have a tool of understanding how your tool works and how it comes to the conclusions it does so that you can troubleshoot that tool when it comes to a improper conclusion. AI doesn't really have that. Even amongst the people who develop AI, there's the black box effect. And so at the end of the day,
I don't know how it came to that conclusion.
right.
Type thing,
So at the end of the day, all they can do is just keep on plugging in inputs and see what comes out. But each input gets a different output. And at the end of the day, some of this stuff is not like it should be more determinative than that. So it is a great tool, but that is part of my issue with it is that as a tool, it doesn't have the one function I require of all my other tools in the SOC, which is that I can understand it and I can troubleshoot it, I can debug it, and then I can reconfigure it so it works better.
Now, one thing I'll interrupt with that is kind of cool. Me and Donald were talking about it a little bit ago, but whenever you're building out your own models and that kind of stuff, there's a program, I think it's called Langfuse LLM.
Okay.
But you can actually use that and you can see where it's drawing its information from to make the decisions it's making.
Ooh.
So you can figure out the context
So you at
that's
least
going
know
on.
the extra inputs that are coming in.
Exactly.
That
you
is
can-
nice.
so they all come from Reddit and Stack Overflow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure.
That's just how it feels, but I thought that would be an interesting
I
tidbit
queued
to add
mine only
there.
to X.
I do know
That's what people do.
one of the from like a security operations standpoint in operating in operating with tools, the one thing that I have found that is kind of annoying with AI tools, and like one of the reasons that I think like a fully autonomous SOC is not really capable at this point in time, is literally what you're saying. Like the idea that you can put in the same exact input and get 5 different outputs.
Yeah.
The problem with this is let's talk about like a known IOC, like something that is truly malicious. Even if it could get that right 99 out of 100, that one time in cybersecurity is going to be a problem. And so if I can't rely on that tool to reliably block that connection to that C2 server, prevent the download of the malware, or prevent somebody from clicking on a particular link because I'm relying on kind of like the inference of a tool. And then if it does make that mistake, not being able to tell it, don't do that, right? And because like all tools are going to have false positives or false negatives. Like when new stuff comes out, that's a given. The problem is with regular tools, I can go in and make a configuration change. I can put in a new policy. I can, probably change the way that it's architected to make sure that that doesn't happen the next time it shows up. AI is a little bit different. I mean, it's very hard to get it to do that consistently. And so I think, again, whenever you're looking at a fully autonomous SOC as of right now, it's just not great.
Another thing that I can point out that's kind of in line with that, and again, looking at the broader industry as a whole, what I've noticed is many of the AI SOCs, or at least the AI analysts that we've seen purportedly in products, they are attached to a product that's given to a client without that. The client obviously doesn't have the requisite knowledge in order to be able to double check. I can't 100% prove it, but there seems to be this byline in both their marketing and their demos that we've seen, as well as communicating with some of the vendors through clients and stuff like that. I'm thinking of one in particular from a while back, but they were also leveraging AI on their appliance that they were selling to clients. And there was this sense that if something did go wrong or if it missed something, that the onus would be on the client in some way, as like, well, you didn't provide the proper context, or you didn't verify this context as being one way or the other, and therefore the AI wouldn't know. And so it's going back to that again, because the people buying the product don't understand how the product is configured or working. It also gives the business a lot of leeway to say, well, no, that missed it because of operator error, not because the AI was a problem or the AI wouldn't have come to that conclusion appropriately regardless. It's because it didn't have enough information from you, the end user. And that to me seems shady at best, if not just downright. Like I said, I don't have a lot of proof for this, but I've just seen a lot of indications that makes me believe that that's how they're going to get out of it whenever it becomes a huge issue.
Yeah.
Just blame it on somebody else.
Yeah.
It's easy. Lawyers do it.
Pointing fingers. It's as simple as that.
Well, kind of go into a next set of questions, and I will hit Mario with this one, seeing as he's kind of hasn't gotten
left
one
out.
directly yet, but and going to the kind of the specification of what you're doing in your day-to-day work. What would you say is like your take on the idea of having someone that is a jack of all trades, master of none type generalist, or someone that's actually like very specific in the tool? So like if we were to extrapolate this question to Scinary's perspective, like taking someone that currently they understand threat down, iron scales, Centurion, how we run our internal and external assessments, like they all know that. And then taking someone or a different paradigm that we don't typically follow, which is the idea of having somebody that they're specifically geared to working in Centurion. That's all they do day in, day out. They understand that platform like no one else. And then you've got another person that's the same thing with threat down, iron scales, our internal and external assessment process. What would you say is kind of I don't want to say the better of the two, because I think they both have their merits, but like when you're looking at that, like what is the benefit of either one, and why would we go with another one over the other choice? Or what would you just consider to be the better one out of the two?
So, of course, most of my history, all of my history, is here with Scinary. We've been through many iterations, right? I've been under all three of you as far as SOC management. And just based
Who's
on
the best?
Brazos, we're all winners. It's in the handbook. We win together. We win as a team.
I like that.
Okay.
You can tell I'm the assistant.
He skirted that one good.
Yeah, I was like, you can tell
That
I'm
was
the
a good one. You're a good assistant, huh?
Oh, thank
Mario,
you.
you want a promotion to assistant director?
I kept making that joke. I'm like, Brazos, if we keep working together, I'll be your assistant director soon.
Assistant secretary, executive secretary.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
But-
it's an executive position.
Exactly. That's the important part. That's why I said it.
But based on
Executive administrative assistant.
oh man,
What was that title that McKenna had? Executive
it?
assistant?
I think it was
Executive assistant.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
That was a crazy stretch of SOC analyst.
Yeah, Lord,
Yeah.
there's been a lot of history since then. But kind of getting back to the question, based on my history here, and I hate to give you a partial question. If I had to pick between the two, I think a jack of all trades is going to be better based on our infrastructure. And with that in mind, it's because we all get our hands dirty. Everyone does. Tier one, granted, tier one versus say all the way up to management, we're going to have varying levels of knowledge, of course, but we want to share that knowledge. I know how to do something you don't. Well, guess what? You're going to get some training and now we both know how to do it. We may not be experts in that field or experts to the nth degree in that field, but allowing everyone to have a part, to have a hand, or at least have the pathway to learn something, specifically for us, has always been well worth its time. Train is kind of what goes through our heads because of Richard particularly. But that, in my opinion, is going to be the better of the two. And the partial answer that I was going to give is because we kind of have that here is a majority, at least in the SOC, have some knowledge of the key components that we have, but the specialization just between like the SOC and tech services, you can tell it's night and day whenever you have specialized expertise, right? I didn't even know ThreatDown could do that. You're like, oh yeah, bro, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say. I think you need an amalgamation. I don't think it can be one way or the other. You lose something significant whenever you just go for specialization. And
I think it's an operational risk.
Yeah, because we harp on it all the time. Defense works best whenever it's defense in depth. Well, you don't get defense in depth if the different tools don't communicate with each other effectively. And I'm not talking necessarily like automation, even if it's just a person who looks at the individual tools, but can correlate that information together into an actual attack chain and understand what's happening. Without that aspect of it, without the ability to be able to look at all the different tools and go, okay, this is the pipeline that happened, right? Without that, you don't have good defense anymore. You have individual defense points that are isolated, and it's easier for them to miss something because sometimes you have to correlate the data between this set and go, oh, those two things together, that's a problem, right? So you lose something whenever you go for just specialization. You also lose something whenever you just go for jack of all trades, and that is the requisite knowledge of getting down deep into some of these, especially whenever you're on investigation, right? Maybe on just the alerting side of things or just like noticing that something's weird, the gut feeling kind of thing, maybe you can get away with just jack of all trades. But whenever you're trying to get down in the nitty-gritty of what exactly did they do, how do I determine that, where can I find that information, you have to know the tool set. And then, like we talked about earlier, if the tool is not giving you what you need, and it's because the tool missed something because of a misconfiguration or because the tool mistook something as something else, or a bunch of different reasons it could come up that way, having someone with specialized knowledge means that they can go in and they can troubleshoot it, know where the log files are, know how to get into the debugging, and know exactly what the debugging stuff means and how to manipulate the configurations in order to make sure that they get the good data. Can we get the data retroactively, right? Can it go and comb back through what it already knows and pull that back up again? That kind of information only resides with a person who's specialized. And you cannot, regardless of what anyone thinks, there's no geniuses out there that can be specialized in everything. No one knows everything. No one can be so knowledgeable that any problem that comes their way, they have, extensive knowledge of the tool they're about to use that's going to address it. They will have a tool set that they favor, and they will be very knowledgeable about that tool set. But it's only in tandem with other people that specialization then becomes fully relevant, because, there are times where we're getting into something and Mario's like, I'm pretty sure I can script this out. Give me just a few seconds. And next thing I know, he's got a script that I wouldn't have done. I'm not that familiar with scripting. I don't do it as often. And every single time he comes up with something, I'm like, no, that's what we needed. And so, at the end of the day, I think that it's only because we end up with these jack of all trades that have a good broad understanding of the defense in depth. But then as you get more and more understanding, you find things that you like to specialize in. And it's kind of you have this big mound of knowledge and then this spike point where this,
fork.
Yeah, sure. But that's kind of what ends up happening. And everyone kind of ends up specializing in their own thing based off of what their knowledge set is or what they're good at or what they enjoy. And overall, we've found ourselves to kind of have spread out in such a way to where we have people addressing all the different major aspects of what it needs for the attack chain. And honestly, whenever something's missing, someone invariably goes, I've recognized that we're missing this and no one knows about this. I want to learn about this. Let me get this knowledge in play for us so that we can start using it.
Yeah. One thing that I will kind of, not necessarily a full counter to the jack of all trades narrative, but the idea of I'll pose a question. And this goes back to kind of our alert fatigue burnout episode. But do y'all think that having someone that is that jack of all trades kind of leads to the potential for a higher degree of burnout or alert fatigue. Because the way that I've kind of looked at it in an analogy that I always kind of put towards is that in our SOC, we've got Centurion alerts, we got threat down alerts, we have Iron Skills alerts. So I always look at it as almost like a 360-degree console that an analyst has to look at with a bunch of red flashing buttons, and your job is to slap every red flashing button that comes up. So you're constantly spinning around in circles, slapping all these buttons.
Yeah.
You don't have that specialization, which, lessens that scope, where maybe instead of a 360-degree circle, it's a 180-degree circle or a 90-degree circle. So I don't know if there was that would be like my one thing there.
The one thing I was thinking about, and the first quote that came to mind, ignorance is bliss. If you don't know what you're looking like, being a systems administrator, there are so many acronyms and small keywords that I see in packets that make me look at it twice, make me take an extra second or two. Like, that's a Windows command. Oh, this is like DLL. Like, I recognize this. I recognize that. So I think it's almost as hindering to have such a master of all trades type of, knowledge base, because it makes you think about things in a very different way versus, if you're only supposed to be looking at network logs and looking for, network anomalies, having the bare minimum knowledge could benefit you, because whenever I see something Windows based, well, I'm technically slowing down to look at this log, longer than maybe this tier 1 analyst who has less knowledge than I am, and they're coming out with the same result I am.
Yeah, I definitely think a pitfall, even though I'm an advocate for it, a pitfall is, at least business-wise or management-wise, it is a nightmare. It is an absolute nightmare, because since we have that 360 field of view, when something does get missed, how do you address it?
Right.
Right. How do you address it? Right. Because it's one of those things where specialization does help that person, but it helps the management and administration of that person, because it's like, Hunter, you missed a network log. Like, that's your job, man.
That's all you do, man.
Yeah, that's all
don't
you
mess
do.
it up.
Right. As opposed to like, Hunter, you don't know every single aspect of GPOs. And
It's like, you're going through the whole ABCs of it all, and it's like, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah,
and that's a huge difficulty. So like, again, I still advocate for it, I think, just based on our kind of infrastructure, but there are definitely some pros and cons.
Well, I think one of the benefits of that jack of all trades thing, and why I think it does benefit, and I think you're in the defense in depth thing is like a really, really good fit for that, is one of the things, and I will forever remember this. There was an instance, and I think this was back when I was SOC manager. It was Ashley had asked me a question, and it was on one of our clients that actually did surprisingly have a security department like inside.
Yeah.
And I remember she was doing something, an alert came up on it, and it was with threat down. And we were looking at some of the logs, and I think it was like they were running InMap or something. They were like running a security tool, and it was kind of like a weird thing. And she was like, should we alert on this? And I remember I was looking through the logs, and I noticed something. And it was specifically on Centurion. And it was the idea of connecting two separate tools and the data from those two separate tools together, and knowing, and kind of some knowledge of the client, because I saw information about Brave browser. And I remember I told, like, sitting there, I was like, Ashley, I am like 99.9% sure that is the security analyst for that organization. And she looked at me and she was like, what? How do you know that? And I was like, Ashley, there is no normal person that's using Brave. This is a security guy. Like, give him a call. Like, give him a call right now. And she was like, oh, I don't want to call him. So I pick up the phone, call the guy. I was like, hey, are you running InMap or whatever the heck it was at the time? And he was like, oh, yeah, I was. I was like, see, is this your IP? Yeah, that is. All right, cool. Thank you. Bye.
Right. Right. It's simple.
So it's like being able to connect, like having kind of that generalist knowledge, being able to apply, like look at one tool and just say like, okay, well, I can take the knowledge that I have of this tool and properly apply it over here, or knowing about like networking and then using the networking knowledge to look at, Centurion logs or threat down logs and be like, that's not how that should be occurring. Like this is the actual proper way that this goes about, does really help. But I've always thought that the 360 degree is probably like one of the bigger issues with kind of the jack of all trades type.
I 100% agree with that. And I think, and this may segue over into the next thing we were going to talk about, but I think it comes down to, you can have either or. You probably need a little bit of both in some, like I said, an amalgamation of somehow. Maybe you have a bunch of specialized people, but you have really good processes for how they communicate, and that gives you your jack of all trades, right? And maybe that helps with the 360 view thing. You would probably have some caveats with that, right? Obviously. But basically the way I see it is any manager has 3 basic tools in their like toolkit that they can employ given the right resources, because resources are oftentimes the limiting factor on these 3 things. Number 1 is personnel, right? So we have 360-degree issue. What we do right now in order to help parse that down a little bit is organization between the teams and organization on the teams about splitting up clients so that they're viewing less client data at once instead of trying to view the entirety of the organization's footprint all at once, right? So it's kind of like, I guess you could put them in a tower of screens. So they got the 360 happening. We try to limit it so it doesn't get above their eyes on the screens. And, because anything above that starts getting missed, right? It's kind of the way we limit that 360 view. And so personnel obviously is one way of being able to mitigate some of the issues with either one of these, right? Specialization, you need more personnel because you need a person for each specialization, right? Which may be a limiting factor for why you can't necessarily do full specialization. Then you have processes, right? So how do we get these people to function together? How do we use the tools that we have available to us? And what process does that take before, like when an event comes in, how we triage it or understand it and how it goes out to the client? Defining processes and working those through can help mitigate all those other aspects of both specialization and jack of all trades. And then finally, very crucially, is the tools you use, right?
Yeah, automation and tool.
Automation between tools can bring it to where maybe I don't have to be specialized in the 3 individual tools. Maybe I get specialized in the tool that amalgamates their information together, and I understand that tool really well, right? So there's ways of being able to use the tool set in order to, like you said, increase automation, but also what tools do you use even for the base tools, right? So, we've used ThreatDown. We're very happy with ThreatDown and how it functions. But, you always want to keep an eye out. Are there better tools? Are there tools that are more efficient? Are there tools that offer us better capabilities or maybe are easier to configure, easier to get into like debugging and understanding? Or do they have a better UI that makes it more intuitive for the analyst so they don't have to do as much work or like trying to pull things out in, So those are the 3 like tools in our toolkit. What tools are you using in order to get the job done? What processes are you using in order to effectively use those tools? And who all do you have to do it? And that's the only things you can affect. But yeah, that's the only way you can address those kind of shortfalls, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think some of that is getting easier with like more tools releasing like API integrations.
Yes.
And you can kind of tie some of that in. So even if you have a bunch of generalists, if we get good at like scripting and programming, you can kind of build out ways to help with kind of the overload of all of the 360-degree view. But one of the things that I do want to talk about, and I will pose this one to Hunter, our resident kind of professor at the MCC, McLennan County Community College. But one of the things that, because there's a lot of people that want to get into security operations, they want to be an analyst, or they're kind of looking at fields that they want to go into. They probably hear this a lot of times, like cybersecurity. It's never going away. It's going to be the future of every cybersecurity technology. So if you want a good paying job, you need to go in here. Now we can. Richard has talked about that, but the thing that I want to ask is if you were talking to someone, and maybe that someone is like middle of their career, like not necessarily like out of college or high school, but they could be transitioning to a different career. We've had some of those here, or even that high school student that's going and looking to do a degree program. If they're looking to get into cybersecurity, what would you say is kind of the key components that they need to do outside of just like going to school? And one of the things that I kind of want to talk about and I want to call out here is that I get that we have a very interesting view on hiring. And the way that we approach things, that is not the industry as a whole. So I really want to look at this because people that listen to this or may hear it, they may not come to work for Scinary. I would say it's most likely that they're not coming to work for Scinary. So when we're giving this kind of advice, I think we need to keep it more to the broad, the industry at
as
large.
a whole.
Yeah.
So if someone was going to try to get into the cybersecurity field, what would you say are some of the components that they need to do to get into a security operations job?
So it's funny that you bring up this question, because I want to say about last week, I had a student who's close to one of the interns here asked me that same question, how do I get into this? If I want to get out of the fast food industry, how do I do it? Mm-hmm. How do I practice cybersecurity? And the first thing I brought up was that unfortunately, cybersecurity is not a job itself. We don't go to work and go do cybersecurity every day. We apply cybersecurity to a lot of different aspects of information technology, and that's where we really come through. And so the first thing I told them was build a home lab. All right. Mm-hmm. You have to love technology to do what we do. All right. I'm sure you don't have to. I'm sure there are people out there who don't like technology as much that do what we do. But for the things we do, I feel that the most important thing is having a love of technology and doing things. So you like Minecraft? Run a Minecraft server. Mm-hmm. You're interested in backup and recovery? Okay, build a backup server. Okay, you're interested in virtualization for home labbing? Build Proxmox. And then what I say, the second part of that is applying cybersecurity ideas to what you're actually doing.
Yep.
All right. You build a Minecraft server. Is it secure? Can you access it? Can other people access it insecurely? How are you actually protecting the assets that you're actually having? Because I think back to a lot of the interviews we have, and it's people can come in and want to build out cybersecurity labs, but that doesn't show their interest.
Right.
I think that the people we have found the most interesting are the ones that have some sort of home lab, and then they're doing some sort of cybersecurity almost on the side. Are you securing it with SSH keys? Well, of course I am. That seemed really straightforward. Cybersecurity is an almost second nature thing to the technology you're already working with.
And so I agree with you on the home lab thing, but I think the biggest thing there is the interest, the passion. And I think that's true for almost any job field, that having an understanding of it that brings about this drive that you want to do more of it is imperative for having a good career. I think it's really important. Now, for some people, that drive is money. I'll tell you right now, cybersecurity is not for you. If you end up making a Fortune 500 business out of it, maybe. But for the most part, as an analyst or even as mid-level management, which is the vast majority of the jobs that are out there, you're not going to be making super bank. So go ahead and get that out of your head right now. They're not $250,000 jobs out there. Just
every website post,
college says,
no.
Be this and you'll be a millionaire.
There are 10 of those out there. They do exist. Very fortunate if you can get one, but don't count on it. So just go ahead and put that one to bed right now. But I think one of the hardest things for me whenever I was first wanting to get into cybersecurity was figuring out that passion. I had a generalized passion because I thought cybersecurity was interesting, and everything I heard about it, every time someone would talk about something, I was like, I find that exceedingly interesting. But I could tell you right off the bat, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Red teaming sounded fun, which it always does. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But also, I figured log analysis was going to be a thing, but I wasn't quite sure how I felt about it or what exactly it would be. Governance, risk, and compliance. At one point in time, I thought maybe I would try to be an advisor for law, creation of laws and stuff like that. I thought maybe that would be a route I would want to go, or maybe machine learning and coding and all that. It's there's so many different aspects you can apply yourself to in cybersecurity. And whenever you start out, it seems so vast and just discombobulating and what do I want to do? And a home lab is a good way of being able to experiment. But even then, where do you start? I'd say the biggest thing to start with is go on YouTube. And I know that sounds, go on YouTube, go on Reddit, read what some other people are doing, read the issues that they're having. You're not going to understand it at first. That's okay. But just go out there and see and watch other people do something. Because that was the biggest disconnect for me, was the theory in the books and what was being talked about on the paper was one thing, but I couldn't put it like whenever they were talking about like you access like SMB doing this kind of code, I was like, cool, where'd I put the code?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready. But okay.
There's a disconnect.
So how do I how do I get to SMB? Like, where is it on the computer? Can I type just SMB? What happens?
SMB.exe.
Yeah.
So that was a frustration for me at first. Was I had used a Mac computer like for 10 years of my life, and all I ever did was watch videos on it. Like I didn't even like write papers. Like I didn't use it was seriously just
a family
like,
computer, huh?
Yeah. Like I didn't really even browse the internet on it. I used my phone for browsing it. Yeah. So the only thing I did was watch movies on this this Apple computer. And I got over into cybersecurity and going back to school, and I was on Windows again, and I was like, ooh. So some things have changed in 10 years. But there was a serious disconnect for me at first of they keep on saying things like everyone's just supposed to know how to get to that panel, that thing. And
common sense.
But it can be very daunting at first.
Yeah.
And the thing is you may be a whiz at Windows and go like, well, yeah, but it is supposed to be common sense. Like everyone knows it. You're just out of touch. It's like, cool, go over to Linux for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you've done beforehand. If you're just getting into cybersecurity, you're going to have that disconnect. The best way to get by it is to watch someone do it and have them walk through the steps with you. YouTube is a great place for that. And, even if it's not YouTube, if you want to find other videos out there, there's people that have blogs and web pages and stuff like that. Be careful about where you go. But overall, the information is out there. Look at that and then have your home lab so you can experiment with the same thing. Do it with them. And then probably go to school or a certification course in order to get that added little benefit of specific knowledge and the theoretical knowledge that's going to support the applied knowledge that you just got.
The way I kind of summarize it, just to throw my 30-second summary, because we've spoken to students at MCC, we've been invited as like guest speakers. We get that question all the time, and I've kind of summarized it in 3 ways. First is you need to focus on your education. Don't think you can be the one guy who dropped out of high school. And
you're not a Steve Jobs.
You are not Mark Zuckerberg.
Borg. Focus on your education. It's important. If you want a degree, get a degree. Don't let your grades slip. 2, focus on the practicality of it. You have to know what you're doing, because you can read a book all day, but you need to know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And then 3rd is put yourself out there. You can want all you want, but that's not going to make you do anything. You need to go do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And here kind of, being a smaller town, right? A growing town, but smaller, there's not a lot of opportunity here. Mm-hmm. So put yourself out there. Like, yeah, that internship may sound boring, but if it's all you have for technology, you better take it.
Yep.
Yeah. And one of the things which I'm glad you pointed up, because I was worried I was going to slightly say a contrarian opinion, at least and again, because I wanted to talk about the industry at large, is I do truly think, because I know we talk about like the merits of going out and self-education and having the passion, and that's what we hire off mostly. But if we're talking about the industry at large, that's really not what they're looking for. That won't get you in the door. No. You do need some, and I know it's really dumb. I wish the industry wasn't like this, but it is. You're going to need the piece of paper.
Yep.
You're either going to need a bachelor's degree.
There's a reason why all of us went to school.
Yeah. You're going to need a piece of paper. Again, Scinary is very unique in that aspect. You're probably at a minimum, for if you want to get into like any of the bigger companies, a bachelor's. But I mean, unfortunately, most likely a master's, or at least some really good certifications.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, is you're going to need some certifications. Even with a degree, you're going to have some kind of specialized certification that's looking for something that they want. Yeah. And that's the other thing, is you may want to try to, after you have done your schooling part, getting the bachelor's degree, getting the associate's degree, if you think that's going to work for you, do research, look at job applications that are out there, look at the places you want to work and what kind of jobs you want to occupy, and then go figure out what certifications you need for that, because you will spend money going for the wrong certifications and beat yourself up like crazy, because certifications are not cheap.
No. And honestly, like I would say, like, get some of the basic certifications so you can get through the HR automation systems, and then see if the company will pay for the bigger ones. Don't go and waste your money on those if you don't have to. The other thing too, and this is something that I've always talked about, is if you're interested in cybersecurity because of the red teaming and the pen testing, it's going to be exceedingly hard to get that job out of school. Like, you're probably not going to get a red teaming job out of college. You're most likely not even going to get an analyst role. And so this goes into my other kind of spiel about how do you break in the industry. Again, Scinary is odd. We have an internship pipeline. We hire literally fresh cybersecurity students, and no doubt there are other companies that do that. But to get into cybersecurity, I would say you're probably going to have to start off doing just regular networking or some other IT job, and then doing cybersecurity at that job, like learning the principles and then applying to be an analyst somewhere else. Because again, it's very rare to go, because cybersecurity in reality is a like higher level of IT job. Like, you got to know the underlying networking and fundamentals of IT to really be able to apply cybersecurity curriculum and understanding and be able to look at logs. So that's another thing that I would say is really important about getting a job in the industry that a lot of people don't really say. And I definitely know colleges won't tell you, because they just want you to take the cybersecurity program. So that is something to look out for.
And one thing you brought up was the whole networking side of it. And, it's funny, because this is actually a conversation I have with my students where, I say, it's important that you know networking, but it's important you also network, because some of the most important things you do are meeting people and, becoming assets to them. So, I mean, one of the, best pipelines, I don't want to say best pipelines we have, but it's, I being in the industry and, talking with all these school districts, that there's people who need interns. There's people who need employees. We went out to a school district earlier this week, and, they were talking about, I mean, do you have any interns or students that you can recommend, to come over and help us? Well, I have to know you guys. They have to come to class. They have to, stand out a little bit. So it's really important that, they network and they connect with people who have these industry connections, because whenever people ask me, hey, Hunter, do you have anybody you'd recommend? I can only recommend people I know. I'm not going to put some random name on a piece of paper to recommend for them.
And one final moment, and then I'll ask the final question before we're done here. But another big thing, especially with AI and the way that, I guess I'm going to be making fun of the Zoomers here, but soft skills, being able to talk to people. Lord. I know if you're going into technology, because I was that way. Literally the first, Richard has told this story. I don't know if it's been on the podcast. The first time my phone rang at Scinary, I freaked the hell out, because I was like, oh God, I didn't want to talk to that person.
You just stared at it.
I've
heard the story so many times.
Just stared at the phone.
Mine's a little better.
And so I understand that a lot of people getting in technology are that way. They're kind of introverted. They don't want to talk to people. But I can tell you, one of the biggest assets that you will have, that networking piece, is developing those soft skills. If you can talk to people, I guarantee you have your leg up against pretty much everybody else that walks through that door.
Well, and even more important than that, report writing. I mean, I can't count how many times it came up whenever I was in my associate's degree program, how many people were like, so report writing is going to be really important. And I was like, cool. So if I do a job that needs report writing, I'll make sure that I've got that down. Report writing it's everything. I mean,
a lot of writing.
It doesn't matter who you are, even a low-level analyst, even in other companies where you're sending things up, you still have to write a report on what you saw as you send it up, so they know what's going on. If you're illegible in your writing, maybe not like handwriting, but if what you say in a text does not make sense, or more importantly, does not efficiently get the point across that you're trying to make, you are going to struggle. And what's more is you're going to make people very upset around you, because at the end of the day, we talk about text speech sometimes and the fact that the tone doesn't transfer through that, but intent somewhat does. And what's more is clearness of information is important, and you can clarify information through proper grammar and vocabulary. that is important whenever you're trying to get something across in a text. And if a lot of these jobs end up being asynchronous, remote jobs. And if you're going to be in something like that and you cannot communicate through text because you're used to using just emojis or letting AI do the job for you, you are going to struggle so much at being able to effectively communicate and moving up the ladder.
You know, it just reminds me of something our director of strategic initiatives would say, you know, if any company could solve the problem of communication, they'd be on top of the whole freaking world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the one barrier I think that prevents any one entity from ruling the world is communication. But the final question, we'll end it here, guys. Because again, we were kind of all managers at one point in time in the SOC. You guys still currently being, but I did want to end it on what do y'all think is the hardest part about being like a security operations center manager or just security operations in general?
Ooh, we should do it by the generation. So like, why don't we start with you, Brazos?
Yeah,
we'll do it by the generation.
Okay.
We'll start with you, and then we'll go to Hunter, and then we'll end
All
on
right.
us.
So, and one of the reasons that I always say that I truly do believe that everybody after me has done a better job than I did is I could not deal with the people aspect of the manager position as well as like what I felt like other people have done it. To me,
It can be rough.
that to me was the hardest aspect of it is like you have such a, and you're like, oh, well, you're the director of strategic initiatives. You're supposed to have like a team. Well, it's like, I get to rely on the managers to manage most of the people. So it's like, I'm just kind of getting reports from people and then making decisions. So it's like that to me is a lot easier to do. And then half the time my job relies around finances. So it's numbers, man. Like numbers they're static. I'm good. They don't have emotions.
Numbers don't lie.
I don't know. I can make those numbers move real fast. Give me a budget.
No.
I was going to say, I think that's the opposite way we wanted that to go. Go get some clients.
Dang.
But I will say to me, that was, I always felt like I did not interact with the individual people. I don't know if y'all felt that when I was there, but one of the things that I have noticed is that you got like the whole training stuff, like all that has like Hunter took it. You guys have built it. Like I didn't really do I just sat in front of y'all and was like, do this, do that. Like, yeah, that's right. Like, so to me, that was the hardest aspect.
And that is certainly a very hard aspect. And what's more is we have so many people out there that sometimes, like, if I have anything special going on, and then I'm focused on maybe one or two people, what happens to the other people that I didn't get to focus on? And how long has it been since I've been able to focus on them and what they're doing?
I will say, Joe, you're jumping out of order.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I was qualifying what you're saying. This is not my.
Okay.
This is not mine.
So that's what I was thinking. I was like, all right, I think this is more of a qualification than
yeah. All right. We'll go and move on. I was saying you're right. There you go.
Thank you.
Let's see. I think the hardest part for me whenever I was a SOC manager was I noticed us going from a small business with just a few employees to more of a medium-sized business. And one thing that I've kind of seen and been, shown to lead with is like culture. So, one of the first things I saw was, gaps in, well, how do we, audit this? How do we show everybody that we're all doing work? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times it was trying to build up those, individual relationships with the employees and trying to get everybody on the same page of we're all here for Scinary. We're trying to do the best by the client. And it was even more important that I did that because whenever I came on as manager, there was an employee that was a little bit complacent in their work. And so a lot of what I did was also, trying to correct them in their way of complacency, which also required a lot of the culture building to go on top of it. But, once you start doing culture building, you also have to build documentation, policies, procedures. Getting people to not be complacent is not very easy. Yeah, so I think that was kind of the main crux of my time as management was just trying to transition us from a small company to a medium-sized business with policies, procedures, and standards.
Cool. Ooh. He's cycling through them. You can see it. He's like, which one should I pick? Which one should I pick?
He didn't qualify mine as much.
Yeah, the Rolodex.
Well, I agree with yours as well. I think building up documentation, auditing has been a huge issue for us.
Oh my gosh.
I was going to say the number of holes that I had whenever I came in, I can only imagine how many you've had with how many things you guys have expanded to.
Yeah, and we're still trying to wrestle with that a little bit. I mean, you don't want to be overbearing with your auditing, and you don't want to have auditing be a manual process where you're basically doing the job over again. And so, I mean, there's a lot of things with audits that there's a bunch of things you can do with it, but then who does it, and what does it take you away from? And then how long has it been since you addressed that? So just like the personnel thing, you can focus on it, but then so time management is actually a big one. But I'm not going to make that my thing. I think my thing is going to be actually keeping on top of new data from the broader perspective of the industry, but also on development of new processes, tools, training. Because at the end of the day, if we just focus on what we have as managers, we end up falling behind very quickly, especially in this industry. I think it's this industry more than anything else that does that. I think in many other industries, as a manager, you get to maybe just audit your employees, make sure the day-to-day business is getting done. Yeah, you just manage. I don't think you get that pleasure in this. I think you have to, like, whenever I look at our growth, I realize that my employees are doing a lot already, and we have a lot more coming down the line. How can work-life balance is a big thing for me, and I know it's a big thing for my employees, and I don't want us to necessarily have to give that up. But at the same point in time, we're going to do what we have to do. We're always going to take care of the clients first. I see my job as like twofold on that front, which is, first of all, take care of the clients, but then my secondary priority is immediately take care of my employees. And how am I going to do that? And the best way to do that and address the 360-degree problem of the data fatigue and burnout and everything else we've talked about in previous episodes is to focus on those three tools that I said that I had before, which is processes, personnel, and the individual tools that we're using as far as programs or products. I don't have a lot of say in the products. That's more on your side or than on Donald's side to develop and do. I can have little things here and there that I can propose, but I don't have a lot of decision making on what that can do. Personnel, I have some decision making on who makes it, right? But I don't have a lot of decision making on, well, I'd like 5 this year. Well, no, the budget dictates that ain't going to happen. So, I don't have that. So that really just leaves processes is the only purview that I have left that I can make some major changes on. But every single new one of those throws a wrench in what was originally before. So it's this constant fight for efficiency that you're.
So would you say the what you're trying to get to is like the levers in which you can pull to affect you as a manager, the actual operations is fairly difficult?
Yeah. And then I've basically been relegated to just processes and trying to use that alone to keep up with the broader just tilt of the world constantly moving forward, which in this industry is a lot.
I was going to say, even whenever I was manager, it felt like having the wheel to a ship. I could turn it left. Don't mean we're going left yet.
Yep. Exactly.
And it's funny because I can kind of see how my ideas fit so well as the assistant, right? Because I'm Joe's right-hand man, and I've told him this before. Like I'm a support class. You remember when I made this example before? For any gamers out there, right? I've always thought of myself as like a support class, right? Whether like someone's a DPS or tank or whatever, I've always been support. Right? You need to go somewhere. I will fit in there somehow to get you there. So the most difficult part for me, and it's not even like a personal level. I mean, it's literally a management style hardship, is building the road to get somewhere. It is the most difficult thing on the planet because a supervisor gets told what to do and they work under those constraints. We are told a problem and to fix it. And that has been the hardest thing because I have millions of ideas, but you need the right one.
Yeah, which one do you choose?
You need the right one. And beyond that would be if, let's say I build a road, but everyone hates it. I got to start over.
That's never happened before.
This has too many bumps in it.
Start over. That has been the most difficult aspect, is being the idea generator for the problem and then being the mediator to make it happen.
Well, guys, I think today was a really good episode, and thank y'all for lending the wise wisdom of the both current and prior security operations center managers. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it when you're listening to it. I believe it'll be going live next week. So
Yay.
thank y'all, and bye, guys.
We're out.
Bye.